Good morning. And welcome this morning to the First Parish in Lincoln. What a delight to see your faces before me as we come back to church this morning on our In-Gathering Sunday, a Sunday when some of our congregation is still off soaking up the end of the summer, but we, the hardy faithful, are back here ready to launch into a new church year, ready to continue on our journey here at First Parish of nurturing spirituality, building community, and pursuing justice. Today, as you might have heard, at the end of our service, we'll be participating in a ritual called Stone Communion. If you still need a stone right now, please raise your hand. One of the ushers will bring one to you. And kids who are with us today, we're especially hoping that you might participate with us and come forward with a stone and place it on our table at the end of the service. Our religious exploration program starts next week. We're really excited about all the wonderful programs that we have coming up next week. For today, if your kid needs a break during the service, totally understand. We have Sophie and Evie in the Stearns room with coloring sheets and games, so please make yourselves at home in this space. If you happen to be visiting with us this morning, I want to offer a special welcome to you. One of the ministers would love to say hello and chat after the service. And a big hello, let's give a wave to all those who are with us online today. Some of you up in Maine or elsewhere, as I said, still soaking up the summer. We hope to hear from those who are online with prayers, joys, celebrations, concerns that we'll read out later in the service. I want to thank everyone who does so much behind the scenes to keep First Parish humming, not just in this year to come, but over the summer, right? As you might remember, we had 2 wonderful summer services here, and we owe a big thanks to the deacons who led those services and to our amazing hospitality team who put out treats that were the envy of Unitarians all across Middlesex County. A special thank you for our flowers this morning given by the First Parish gardeners to honor the parishioners who created our church garden, which if you don't know about is worth taking a look. It's just behind the parish house up the hill. That garden's been running for about 12 years, so we honor them this morning as well. Friends, here at First Parish, we are carrying on the traditions of our Unitarian, Universalist, and congregational heritage, but more than that, we are seeking. As our September worship theme tells us, we are on the lookout for the new light and the new, fresh spiritual truths that are ready to unfold before us here today. Which means that whoever you are, wherever you happen to be on your journey, younger or older, richer or poorer, whatever your sexual orientation or your gender identity, you belong here. Because of you, this body is more complete. I would invite us now to rise as we're able in body or spirit as we join our voices in our opening words found in the bulletin. You and I and all of us blew about with the winds of summer, following the sun in different ways of freedom and play, finding rest in the cool stillness of shadows. Now it is time for gathering in. We come together at this time and in this place on the bridge of autumn. Summer is fading backward into memory, and winter waits in snowy brilliance. We meet with eagerness and delight, needing one another for understanding. We have joys and sorrows and hopes to share, questions, things we care about and want to help make better. Today, we are together in gladness, once more the special community that we call the church.
wish in saying our covenant, which you'll find printed in the order of service. In the love of truth and in the spirit of Jesus, we unite for the worship of God and the service of all. Thank you. Please be seated.
Well, good morning, church. It is so good to see all of your beautiful faces this morning. It is wonderful to be back together, gathering once again as a community of belonging. And I look forward to seeing you all more and catching up on our summer away. I invite you now to turn to your fellow seekers and offer a sign of peace, whether a hug or a handshake, or if you prefer, prayerful hands. Let's greet one another this morning.
Good morning. Our first reading this morning comes from a classic Chinese text, foundational to the faith of Taoism. And this is a very beautiful poetic translation, an adaptation by the writer Ursula Le Guin. Let us listen now for the Spirit to speak. The way never does anything, and everything gets done. If those in power could hold to the way, the 10,000 things would look after themselves. If even so they tried to act, I'd quiet them with the nameless, the natural. In the unnamed, in the unshapen, is not wanting. In not wanting is stillness. In stillness, all under heaven rests.
We come now to the time in our service that we set aside for silent and spoken prayer. To prepare ourselves, remaining seated, we will sing hymn number 20, and following the hymn, we will take 2 minutes for silent prayer meditation, and reflection.
Now is the time that we bring our hearts open together and share what we might be thinking about, worrying about, celebrating together, and we hold it, and we know that everything is easier and more joyful to hold together. And some of us are seeing each other after quite some time, so we want to hold some space for what has happened while we've been summering. So for what and for whom are we praying this morning? Deanna.
I'd like to say a prayer of love and gratitude Just 3 weeks ago in this sanctuary, my family and I said goodbye to my dad, who passed away late July. And I want to thank Reverend Kit and Miranda for leading us in that beautiful service. And I want to thank this community and the care committee, the cooks, who took care of my family and I for days, even making my mom an incredible chocolate cake for her birthday. So thank you.
Thank you, Deanna. We hold Paul, your father, in our love and prayers. And I want to lift up a few other beloveds who have gone on to glory this summer in our community. We honor and celebrate the life and mourn the death of Juliet Rago, Denise Bean Fang, and just last week, Kimon Tashioglu. Thank you. And let's just hold a moment to honor those spirits for whom this was a spiritual home for so many years. We honor and we feel their presence, even as they go on to the great mystery that is beyond this life. Amen. What else are we holding today?
A prayer of love and support for the Linehan family who lost their mom to ALS just a couple of weeks ago after a quick and ruthless disease.
This is a prayer of gratitude and hope for new beginnings, moving into a new home, and we're blending two families together, and it's going to be very exciting.
I ask that you hold my wife Jessica and her family in your thoughts and prayers. Her father passed away a week ago Monday after 6 months of illness.
For Jessica's father who passed away last week. Thank you, Nick. Yeah.
I want to ask everyone to help celebrate a new life in our community. August Robin Flint was born on Wednesday, and he's healthy and happy, right next door. Yes.
I'd like to give a prayer of thanks for the freedom that we have in our country to speak up and have our voices be heard. And I'm thinking especially of people around the world whose voices are silenced, and women, and where it's even a crime to have their voices be heard. So I give thanks for all the voices in this parish and around our country.
I'd just like to add a prayer for Rhoda Tashioglu, a longtime friend and a longtime member of this church, who had a very wonderful relationship with her husband, and I know is really grieving this very severe loss.
I'd like to offer a prayer a hopeful prayer that there can be vigorous and respectful conversations on college campuses as the students return, and I'm sure that there will be conversations about what's going on in Israel and Gaza. And I also am thoughtful about younger students elsewhere, in our elementary schools, our middle schools, our high schools, and hope that as this academic year begins, that they too will find that they're in a safe space as they go forth with their education.
I want to offer a prayer. I'm sitting here in anger and frustration at the wars that go on endlessly. And so I pray for peace for myself, for equanimity, and that people will find a way to unstick this puzzle that seems so intractable. So many puzzles.
I would like to say a prayer for all those that are among us today who are suffering from ill health and troubles with their health, and that we must be thinking of them as they silently go through this.
I'll add in a prayer of joy in our household. Tomorrow, Gwendolyn Olive turns 4 years old. She was born during COVID under an orange wildfire sky out in Berkeley, California. Tomorrow she's 4.
I would also like to offer a prayer for Kimon, who I grew up knowing as a neighbor, but in his mid-80s joined the youth programs committee here at church and offered so many wonderful, insightful offerings to the committee, and he really believed in finding a program here that families couldn't find elsewhere in Lincoln, and I will cherish the friendship I developed with him very much.
I'd like to offer a prayer for my dear friend Sue, who is going to have a procedure tomorrow. Amen.
I was inspired by the prayer in front of me. I'd like to offer a prayer of gratitude for the children that I teach, because I knew I missed them, but to see them again, to hug them, to look at butterflies with them and play with them and be with them has brought me real joy and love. So thank you.
Just a quick prayer for safety and health for all our school staff, students, and parents as we start a new school year.
I'm a prayer of joy for all the kids in our sanctuary, just bubbling with life, and all the smiles that are being drawn on stones over here.
From our online congregation, from Steve Johnson, a prayer of joy and thanks for community, for reunion, and for the rekindling of our spirits. We lift up these We lift up these prayers of our community, both those that have been spoken aloud and those that we hold in the silence of our hearts. Amen.
As we come back together and look ahead to the fall, back to work and school, looking forward to gatherings with family and friends and our church community, getting involved once again in our town, our state, and our nation with meetings and elections. Let us pray to God, the universe, and into the divine in our own hearts. Where there's division, help us find curiosity and compassion. Where there's anger, help us find grace. Where there's sorrow, help us find comfort. Where there's fighting and war, help us find peace and forgiveness. Wherever we gather, as we have this morning, help us find joy and love. Help us to be present to these choices in each moment so that they fill our hearts and guide our actions. Amen. Please join, if you wish, in saying the unison prayer that appears in your order of service. From Psalm 121. I lift my eyes to the mountains. Where is help to come from? Help comes from the Eternal, who made heaven and earth. The Eternal guards you, sheltering you. The Eternal will protect you as you come and go, now and forever. Will the ushers please come forward to receive this morning's offering?
Friends from whom we now must part.
That was just beautiful. Thank you, choir. Before we get to our second reading, I think we have one prayer from the prayer book here that I wanted to lift up. It's a prayer for a daughter's full recovery from her medical event. So our second reading is this longer passage. It does go on to the next page, and it comes from a composer, a musical composer named Conrad Tao, and it's called simply Stones. In 2020, on most days, I took a walk north along the Hudson River. About 2/3 of the way up was a bank of mysterious stones. Stones stacked on top of each other, forming elegant, gravity-defying piles. I'll never forget the first time I encountered these stones on my first walk up the river. The feeling of another person, the feeling of another, was very evident. When I first came across these stones, I wasn't sure if this was the effort of many people or just one. But regardless, the feeling of somebody's hands, someone desiring to express, someone desiring to leave a trace of themselves, that was so palpable and so moving, especially at that time when it was difficult to connect with people. And as I kept taking these walks through the summer and the fall, I observed a change within the stones. Sometimes they would nearly disappear, only a few shallow piles left that you could see if you looked hard enough. I later learned that these stones were the work of a local self-taught artist named Ulix Grika. I was excited to learn this information, but there was a part of me that didn't necessarily care that much about who was on the other side of these sculptures, because at least at the time I discovered the stones, they were unmistakable but fairly anonymous. Grika wasn't leaving a signature. I believe he has in the past, but when I encountered the work, he wasn't. There was something in that too. There was something about the simplicity and the confident humility of leaving the work there to be seen, to be discovered, to be experienced. Perhaps the trace was enough, and the credit was secondary. Shortly after we moved to our house in Concord, we discovered something strange in the backyard. At the edge of the property line, hidden behind a screen of leaves, there was this group of 3 boulders, not rocks, but big boulders. Sometimes staring out the kitchen sink window during the winter when the trees were bare, I could stare right at these stones. They would stare back at me. How long have you been here? A long time, buddy. Could I ever get rid of you or move you somewhere else, perhaps? Not likely. And what is your meaning? That's your job to figure out. Aren't you a preacher after all? Talking to a neighbor once, I learned that if you were to dig deep in our backyard, you would probably find many more stones. As you might know, when glaciers melted across New England 16,000 years ago, they left behind millions of rocks in the soil. Fast forward to the early 19th century, European settlers moved inland as part of their dispossession of indigenous people. They began to cut down forests. More and more of the land was plowed. And without that thick layer of topsoil, of forest topsoil, the frost line now reached down to the stony glacial soil below. You've heard about a stone sinking, but back then rocks and boulders literally rose up out of the ground as frost heave pushed millions of stones to the surface every winter. This helps explain why by the 1870s there were 250,000 miles of stone walls here in New England, enough to stretch from the earth up to the moon. Something there is that doesn't love a wall, Robert Frost writes, that sends the frozen ground swell under it and spills the upper boulders in the sun and makes gaps even two can pass abreast. Frost knew that even these durable objects don't fit together for all that long. Part of the beauty of New England stone walls, I think, is the precariousness of their balance. Next time you drive along Baker Bridge Road, which way is it? It's over here. Take a look at that stone wall that runs parallel. So many shapes and sizes, right? Slabs, boulders, balls. The miracle, I think, is that stones fit together at all, that they can form part of something larger than themselves. And in this way, I think stones resemble people's lives. Your life, my life. We are each shaped as individuals, fearfully and wonderfully made, like the psalmist puts it. And yet, when we consider how we might fit together with all our different surfaces and inclinations, it's natural to hesitate. If you're like me, it's sometimes easier to find the faults, to point to the places where the edges don't really line up. But what if instead of asking, where do I fit in, or what can I bear to belong to, what if we ask this question? What do I want to build? What do I want to help create in my lifetime, in my short spell of years? And if we ask that, I think we will realize that whatever we want to be part of, whatever legacy we want to leave, we need one another. We need to re-enter the act of leaning on someone else for balance. We need to try again to be astonished by the people around us. During the summer, I came across this quote about belonging. It comes from a Lebanese-American writer named Philip Metris. Metris writes, In our late capitalist, post-Calvinist, settler colonial society, so many of us feel uprooted. So many of us feel alienated. That's probably why the United States is such fertile ground for fierce religiosity, looking for ties that bind, the origin of the term religio, in the deterritorialized, genocidal space of this country. Philip Metris offers a welcome tonic to the self-mythologizing we can be prone to here in America, especially during election season. And he is highly critical of the way that religion sometimes swoops in with its claims about damnation and salvation, who's in, who's out, all to satisfy that desire we have for belonging. And yet, Metris himself is a practicing Catholic. He understands how a living faith, a grounding in a particular spiritual community, can provide the rootedness that so many of us are looking for. Metris writes about living with his wife and kids on the edge of an Orthodox Jewish community in their neighborhood in Cleveland. His Arab daughter playing with Orthodox kids in the front yards. And though he and his neighbors observe different practices and share different politics, they are building something too. The stones of their lives are touching day by day, year by year, leaning right up against each other. In a few minutes, you will be invited to come forward to participate in our ritual of stone communion. Maybe you brought a rock or a pebble from somewhere you visited this summer, somewhere where your heart belongs deeply. Maybe you were handed a stone by one of the ushers as you came in this morning. I want to ask you now to hold that stone in your hand. Take that stone in your hand and consider it. Is it heavier than you expected? Is it lighter? Is it warm? Is it cool? Can you find it? Hold it in your hand and think for a minute about where it might have come from. Think about that moment it might have first broken the surface of the earth. And then think about everywhere that you have been. Think about some of the amazing distances you have traveled in your life. I mean distances of miles, but also distances of grace, distances of heartbreak, distances of hard work, all to be right here in this simple room at the beginning of another autumn. The stones that we bring forward may outlast us, but they will not last forever. Their ultimate fate, like the fate of the minerals inside our bodies, is to dissolve, to be washed to the sea, to be recycled back into some other organic form. It's hard to think that slowly, to really see our lives and our stories in geologic time. But in a room like this one, we can try. So lastly, ask yourself, friends, before you bring up your stone, what would I like to build while I still have time? What would I like to be part of? And what trace, as Conrad Tao puts it, what trace do I want to leave behind? Now, friends, Miranda is going to play some music, and we are invited to come forward pew by pew and place our stones on the table below the pulpit. We will begin with the folks on the left side of the sanctuary, starting with the front pews. Folks on the other side of the sanctuary, once about half of these folks are moving forward, you guys can begin to. We'll start in the back with Ranila and Robin. If you just go back through our narthex and join this line, then we'll all be walking in the same way. There was a lot of conversation in the back about how this was going to work, and I think we figured it out. We're going to go this way around. Folks from the choir, please come down as well, and kids, we're looking forward to having you participate. So let's begin our year, let's begin our work of belonging as we come forward, starting with Sue and Nancy and Susan, and place our stones on the table.
service. We go forth from the worship of God to be faithful to the vision of Jesus, to affirm each person's dignity, and to cherish the living earth.
Friends, I want to thank you so much for being with us for our soft launch of this church year. Let's just take a look at what we've built here up on the table this morning. There is so much good work to be done in our community and in our world, and I hope that you'll look at the upcoming flyer inside your bulletin for some ideas of how we can start to build together this year. We especially point your attention to Rally Sunday, which is next Sunday. We'll have a great big service with amazing music, and then treats and lawn games outside, and as I mentioned, our religious exploration program will start up the hill as well. So now, as we prepare to head out of here after our announcements, as we prepare to go into the fall, I hope you'll listen for these words of blessing. Stone by stone, may we build the beloved community. Stone by stone, may we find our place of belonging. Amen. I'm sure we have a few announcements to kick off our church year. Please raise your hand and we'll make our way around with the microphones.
Good morning, Elizabeth and Abby. With our Family Connections Committee. Our playground cleanup last year got rained out 3 times, and we met on Wednesday for the first time and decided let's have an impromptu playground cleanup. So we came in our gardening clothes. Anyone and everyone is welcome. Nate, your sermon really kicked me off to a great announcement. Here we are. Let's build this church here together, create a beautiful playground for our community, and we need one another. So come join, help us. Let's weed and cut back branches. We'll be up there. We have some snacks, and we'd love to have you join us and the kids as we get the playground ready for the church here.
It's just a save the date right now. Details to follow, but we're having an intergenerational service day together coming up on Saturday, October 26th at Farrington. It's likely 2 to 4, time to be confirmed by next Sunday. So stay tuned for more information, but save the date for Saturday, October 26th. Thank you.
Hi, Nick Morgan. I'm particularly excited to announce that we're having our 2nd annual TEDx Walden Pond right up the hill in the parish hall. And we learned from last year we had 15 speakers, and the audience that was there, some of you I recognized our heads were exploding after about 10 speakers. So this year we're having 10 even more magnificent and fascinating speakers. And I'm particularly pleased to announce that one of them is sitting right here in this congregation. Elida, please stand up. She is speaking at TEDx October 23rd, Wednesday night. The tickets are on sale now. Please join us.
I'm Joan Kimball from the Racial Justice Journey, and our journey is beginning again. And we hope that you will join us to see the wonderful film Origin. It's the story of Isabel Wilkerson's writing of caste. We also read her book, The Warmth of Other Suns, as a church. The movie takes us to Nazi Germany, to India, and to Mississippi, and it tells us the story of Isabel Wilkerson. It's been called captivating, compelling, and hopeful. And it'll be Tuesday, September 17th at 5:45 in the Stearns Room. Bring a sandwich. And we'll show the movie, but you also can watch it at home. We'll tell you how. And then you can come and join the discussion. So I hope you'll all join us because people, including my friend here, have said it's terrific.
And so instead of taking time to tell you how to view this movie, if you would like to know how to use the free service offered by the library called Canopy, which has 30,000 free movies, come see me during coffee hour and I'll get your email and send you a guide.
Perfect segue. Speaking of coffee hour, hi, I'm Jane O'Rourke and I'm the chair of hospitality. And I don't know if you heard a little bit of a crash, but we had a little bit of an incident, which we're cleaning up. And the good news is that we have been experimenting and we've got food and beverage separate. A few of you had made that recommendation to us, so we were giving it a try, and it was Providence because the food is great and the beverages are being replenished. I'm clear about the coffee. I'm hoping we have some, but we'll have lemonade and cider and great will and lots of great food. Gina made amazing cookies. I made some cupcakes and muffins. We're all set. So please do come, and we are attempting to change the shift of humans in that room so that it doesn't feel so bottlenecked when we all arrive. So bear with us, and thank you for your patience.
Two things from me. This Tuesday, we're kicking off a new year of sacred texts. It will be held monthly this year, starting this Tuesday, and then the first Tuesday of every month from noon to 1. It's on Zoom, and this fall we are exploring sacred wisdom from the Hebrew wisdom literature. And I'm doing a 3-session small group. I'm calling it an embodiment small group. We are cultivating a radical acceptance of our bodies. And so we're going to be thinking about all the ways that culture and society puts up barriers to us accepting our bodies and the ways that they show up in our ability, our health, our size, in all sorts of ways, our age as they age, as our bodies age. So we'll be thinking about those things, sharing vulnerable feelings and thoughts, as well as dissecting those things that get in the way, and encouraging some embodiment practices of ways for us to really come home to our bodies. And so I encourage you to sign up. The registration is found in the September Parish News and the weekly news brief. I'm looking at limiting it to about 8 to 12 folks. If there is a surplus and people are really interested, then I'm looking at running a second session. Okay, so I encourage you to register online. Thank you.
All right, thank you everybody. We'll see you in the Stearns Room for food at least, and we'll see you up on the playground if you have time and energy as well. May we go in peace.